So hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the basics of Python programming language. Now Python in our case is an interpreted programming language. So now we'll try and explain both this term individually. Now first let's talk about what does a programming language means. You see, we have a computer and we need to get some sort of a work done with it. Now you can do it in two ways. Either you can just download an application. Imagine you are downloading the VLC media player and you're getting your job done. So this is one of the way, but imagine a scenario where you need something specific which is not downloadable, or maybe it is not created the first time itself, right? So in that scenario, what we have to do is create that thing. So what programming language enables us to give instruction to the computer, right? As we do understand that a computer doesn't normally understand our natural language or English or whatever language we are speaking. It basically understands ones and zeros, that is binary. So we need a mechanism to convert our instruction to this machine language, that is ones and zeros, and this is where a programming language comes into existence, right? So out there are multiple programming language. So Python is one of them, and in the current scenario Python is pretty famous also, and it's also in CBSE syllabus. So we are going to talk about that, right? So you see, programming languages are basically of two types. Usually they are considered to be of two types. One is an interpreted, another is compiled, right? So the job of both of these type of programming language is yet again same, and just to convert a high level language that is more or less an English like language into a machine code which a computer, or precisely a microprocessor, can execute, right? So in our case Python is an interpreted language, right? So we will briefly talk about interpreted language because that is the language of our concern. You see, what happens, we write our script, right? A program where we will write our code, something of this sort, right? So now as you can see, now if you don't understand the code as of now, don't worry, you will understand it later on. So as you see, it is more or less English like. Now as we know, our microprocessor or our CPU understands ones and zeros. So there need to be a mechanism to translate from this to this, right? From English like language to one that is understandable by a computer. So here comes an interpreter. Now interpreter is also a software, right? So it is also a software. Now what it does, it takes our script. Now usually in case of an interpreted language, these are called scripts. So we are going to write Python script as compared to a compiled language where these are called programs, right? So more or less they are semantically same. So what an interpreter does, okay, so what it does, it takes your Python script, it also takes your input, right? So may or may not your program have an input, but in that scenario the interpreter will still take the input and then it will supply with the object code to the microprocessor, or more or less binary code to the microprocessor, and now microprocessor can understand this sequence of ones and zeros to get our job done, right? So this is how a Python program also works. That means what? We have to download an interpreter to get this entire system working, right? So currently we would be using Python 3.6. So it's both a programming language standard, that is the code will be different from the 2 version. 3.6 will have a bit of different code, as well as the interpreter will be different at the same time. So we have to download the Python interpreter from the site and get it installed and get it working, right? And only then we can get our scripts executed, right? So that is how Python program works. Now advantages. Now every programming language has its advantages, pros and cons. So we will talk about its advantages over here. So it is easy as compared to other programming language like C++ or you see Java or similar kind of a language. Python is relatively easy because its syntax is more or less similar to English language, and it doesn't have those kind of rules and regulations, like you don't have to declare the data type. It's a dynamically typed language, right? All these stuffs are there. So for a beginner, Python is a very good language to learn, right? So one aspect is it's easy. Then it has a huge library. Now what do I mean by library? Library is basically, you see, functions, predefined codes and etc. that we can just simply use, right? We don't actually have to write the implementation, we can just simply use it. So in our case, in our syllabus, we have NumPy basically for numerical operations, complex numeric operations. We'll work with matplotlib. So this is also a graphing library. So that means using your data sets, you can generate graphs, you can generate, you see, different kind of graphs, you can generate histograms of some sort, right? You can generate pie charts. So these are all possible with matplotlib. And we are also going to discuss about something called as a pandas, right? Again, Panda is very much used in data science community for analytics and similar kind of a thing. So we'll understand how to create data frames in Pandas and how to operate with them. So you don't have to worry as of now. We'll talk about it later on in this course. So again, it is efficient, I would say, because there are certain aspects. Now this is again a debatable topic, whether it is efficient, fast or not. Again, it has some efficiency mechanism as well as some fail safes, like garbage collector and this kind of thing, which actually make your program a bit robust as compared to other programming language, where you have to have integrate knowledge of what you're actually doing. So if you're not sure about your coding precisely in C++, and you are using constructs like pointer, so it might backfire on you. So in that scenario, Python is a bit better, right? And again, it's a debatable concept. And again, the best part is that it's free and open source, right? So free means you don't have to pay, you can just simply use it, right? And it is open source, so it's community maintained. So that's why the bugs and everything else is pretty less in that scenario. And yes, open source softwares are more preferable. That is how it's going on, right? So this was all about a bit of introduction of Python programming language. Again, you will download Python, install on your system. By default, it comes with an idle IDE, which can be used for coding or scripting. I know they cannot be used interchangeably, but for our concerns, we will be using them interchangeably, right? Or we are going to use something called as a Spider, which is also a free IDE that can also be used. And we can also use Jupyter Notebook, right? So all of them have their own strengths and weakness, but they can be used interchangeably. Now if you are writing a very small piece of scripts, then idle is a very good choice because it doesn't have that kind of an overhead. But if you are writing a very complicated project, complicated software, then Spider should be your choice because it has the debugging features and everything. And a Jupyter Notebook, again, it's a very good tool. It's a web-based IDE, and as a teacher, it's very good for us because it helps us keep track of the previous codes and everything. It has an idea of a markdown also, right? So this was the basic idea of Python.